Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Tonight's lecture, class, or benefit, or circle, or cipher will be of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's statement. Allah asking the question, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ? Will they not, shall they not reflect, think about, ponder, and deliberate on this Quran? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Will they not reflect on the Quran? So in the shade of this verse, we will take selected tafsir tonight, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, regarding the speech of Allah subhanahu azza wa jal. And as we all know, and as we have explained countless times, there is nothing more beneficial for the servant in this world, his life in this world, and his life in the next world, or the afterworld, or the hereafter, than reading, memorizing, reflecting, thinking, studying, propagating the words of his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is more beneficial for the Muslim than reflecting on the Quran al-Kareem. Period. And likewise, nothing is more harmful upon the Muslim than not reflecting on the Quran al-Kareem and taking the Quran and its study and its understanding and its memorization and its reflection as something secondary, or something as a sideshow or footnote of this or of that, and making the reflection on the Quran something that only a few people have to do and only a few people should do. But the 9 to 5 day-to-day Muslim is a 9 to 5 day-to-day Muslim, and a tajir, and a shagal, and a muwaddaf, and a sheikh, and an imam, and al mutawwa. You're the special person. Me, I'm just an average Muslim. I work all day. This is a trick of the shaitan, and he has employed this trick against countless servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thinking that the reflection of the Quran is something extra and is above and beyond the duty of the everyday Muslim. And there are different tools and there are different means that the shaitan and the shayateen have used. From that is what I've just mentioned to you. That reading the Quran abundantly, reflecting on it, thinking about it, is only for special elite Muslims. And other times the shaitan or the shayateen, they come and they make a bridge, like between the Muslim and the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through language. How many of us don't know the basics of the Arabic language? How many of us know the Arabic language but we don't know the Fusha? And we don't speak it, and it's difficult and hard to speak it. Okay? And there are other tricks and there are other ways that the shaitan uses to get the Muslim to avoid this. Reflecting the Quran, thinking about the Quran, and applying it. That's another trick. A third trick is that it sounds good, it's historic, it's romantic. The Quran is a holy book, but the application and implementation of it is it's different. This is a political issue. This is a cultural issue. This is an issue of science. This is an issue of modern day 2023. The Quran is good, it's nice, it's the Muslim's holy book. We understand that. But the real 9 to 5 3D application of it is no. And obviously that's the greatest fruit of the reflection, is to act. That's the whole purpose of thinking, is to act. So bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, tonight, in light of all of these different points, we will make some selected readings and some selected reflections and interpretations of some of the words of Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. We're going to read from a book which is called a Tafseer al-Qayyim. A Tafseer al-Qayyim, which is a compilation of different surahs and ayat that were explained and expounded upon by the great scholar, the great Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. And scholars many hundreds of years after him came along and they took from his different books, from his expansive library, where he's making the tafsir and they put it in one work, in order, the order of the Mus'haf. And they called it a Tafsir al-Qayyim. So we're reading from the fifth volume, and that is from Suratul Inshiqaq. When Allah Azza wa Jal asks us, or He tells us, إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ, that time will come when the heavens will split asunder. إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ. And obviously we know that this is a Meccan surah, and the style or the styles of the Meccan surahs are very obvious in this surah. Short verses. Allah Azza wa Jal addresses the kuffar and the mushrikeen of Mecca. Allah Azza wa Jal reminds them and asks them rhetorical questions about their acceptance of His rububiyyah, to force them to accept His uluhiyyah or His ilahiyyah. You know that I'm the only creator. You know that I'm the only provider. You know that I'm the giver of life and the taker of life. So make me your only deity. Do away with the in-betweens and the intermediaries. Do away with seeking intercession. Do away with these spirits and the idols and the goddesses. Because you know that I'm the only Rabb, the only Khaliq, all right? The only Mudabbir, the only Raziq. So therefore make me the only Ilah and the only Ma'bud. And also from the styles of the Meccan surahs, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about the heavens and the earth. And He talks about resurrection and apocalypse. And He talks about these great created beings ceasing and failing to exist and going away and vanishing. وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالُ, the mountains will vanish. If you just think about it, and that's thinking as well, how big are the mountains? How vast and tall and proud are the mountains, the sun, the moon, the sky that covers everyone. It will go away. It will split. It will vanish. It will burn up, etc. That in itself is food for thought. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Inshiqaq, He says here, لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ السَّمِيعِ الْعَلِيمِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, what is translated to mean, لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. قال ابن القيم رحمه الله تعالى أي حالا بعد حال. فأول أطباقه كونه نطفة ثم علقة ثم مضغة ثم جنينا ثم مولودا ثم رضيعا ثم فطيما ثم صحيحا أو مريضا غنيا أو فقيرا معافا أو مبتلا إلى جميع أحوال الإنسان المختلفة عليه إلى أن يموت ثم يبعث ثم يوقف بين يدي الله ثم يصير إلى الجنة أو النار. فالمعنى لكن حالا بعد حال ومنزلا بعد منزل وأمرا بعد أمر. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, indeed you will travel, you will mount, you will ride, you will experience and go through tabaqan an tabaqin. And Ibn Qayyim says that this verse in Surah Al-Inshiqaq means you, O human being, O man, you will go from state to state, situation to situation, scenario to scenario, circumstance to circumstance, level to level. Allah, He's swearing that indeed you will go, O man, through state after state. It's a very interesting proverb that is said in the Arabic language. They say, Dawamul hali muhal. Dawamul hal ish mustahil. For things to remain the same and for things to always be as they are is impossible. Dawamul hali muhal. And this is a very wise statement. Nothing will remain the same forever. And people that complain and they boo-hoo. Men that are older, they talk about when they were younger, when I was stronger, when my hair was brown and black. I had muscles. You see that picture? My back was strong. When I was an older woman, that was in my 20s. See how beautiful and gorgeous I was? And the older generations, they talk about how things were in the golden days. Remember back in the day? Remember we used to do this? Remember how things were? Remember how it was back in the day? And oftentimes, they can't overcome back in the days. And they have to find a hero and a savior, and they have to find an enemy and a bad guy. Everything was good until you came, or he came, or these people, or this race, or this person came, and he messed our perfect life up. And they over-romanticize and they get stuck in the past. This applies to fashion, music, the radio, right? When the stuff that you were listening to in the 90s, when that came out, the people from the 80s were saying, what? What is this? And the people from the 70s were saying, what? What is this? And the people from the 60s and the 50s were saying, what? What the heck is this? So things always change and things always evolve. Style, fashion, times, politics, war, peace, etc. Nothing stays the same. The faster you understand this and the quicker you get this point, the easier your life will be, especially as a Muslim. And anyone who's ever involved himself in any type of competitive sport, he knows that you're not going to remain on top forever. And today you're a victor, and tomorrow you'll be a loser. That's how sports work. That's how the league works. In boxing, the champion that was heavyweight or the middleweight champion for all of those years, he's going to get older. He's going to get slower. People are going to still fear him, still respect him. But a younger boxer will come up and knock him out, and they stop the fight. They knocked him out, or technical knockout. And the old champ is what? He's no more. It's no more. His time has come and his time has gone. And it's time for a new champion. So when a person is intoxicated by victory, drunk, and drunk by a golden age and a golden era, he'll be shocked when he's woken up from his sleep and from his slumber. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us this, He teaches us this before it's too late. لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. Things will not stay the same. So when you're doing good, when you're on top, prepare for things not to be so good. When you're wealthy, what does the Prophet ﷺ say? اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. Take advantage of 5 things before 5 things. That is golden wisdom. Golden wisdom. When you're strong and healthy, make preparations for when you'll be weak and sick. When you have money and affluency, you have abundance of wealth, you save up, you invest, you put things to the side, because that money flow, that cash cow will run out of milk. That's a fact. When you're young, you invest in your older life. Insurance, right? Pension, 401k, retirement plans, Merrill Lynch, financial advisors, because you're not going to be able to go to work anymore. You're not going to be able to make this money anymore. So take care of these things before. When you're on top, prepare for your downfall. And when you reach the bottom, you suffer a victory, something is taken away from you, you go through difficulties and hardships, never despair, never lose hope. La tayas. Don't give up. Because that situation will also what? Change. And somehow, one way or another, you'll be back climbing the ladder. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He tells us, He says, He's speaking to man, you will travel level after level, stage after stage. Ibn al-Qayyim says the first stages of man, of the human being, kawnuhu nutfatan, is him being water. It's him being semen and sperm. Nothing of value, nothing of weight, nothing of significance, nothing of importance, but that's where you come from. That is your origin, and that is a state. And afterwards, ثُمَّ عَلَقَةً, a clot of blood, ثُمَّ مُضْغَةً, then chewed flesh, ثُمَّ جَنِينًا, and then you'll be a fetus, a little small, tiny little potato in the womb. ثُمَّ مَوْلُودًا, and then a baby, an infant, a newborn. ثُمَّ رَضِيعًا, and then the baby will breastfeed, will feed. ثُمَّ فَطِيمًا, and then the baby will be weaned from its mother's warm bosom. The nutrition of the milk, the comfort of the milk, one of the biggest struggles is to wean a baby. It's a huge, huge fight. And it's much more than just food to the baby. The baby eats table food, but it's the baby's everything. And subhanAllah, you look at the ayat of Allah, the Mighty and the Most High, the baby is born. The baby comes out, the baby's safe and sound. They cut the umbilical cord, wipe off the baby, so on and so forth. And what does the baby do? The baby instinctively knows how to nurse. Who taught the baby to nurse? Who gave the baby the knowledge in the womb that you need breast milk? Where does it get that from? So Allah Azza wa Jal, He created man in steps and stages. Ibn Qayyim says, and after he's fatim, after he's weaned off of his mother's milk or her mother's milk, ثُمَّ صَحِيحًا أَوْ مَرِيضًا, you either be healthy and strong or weak and sickly. How many illnesses and diseases people have when they were younger and they grow out of them? Allergies, rashes, weak bones, and they grow out of them. Or the opposite. When I was younger, I didn't have this illness. I didn't have this sickness. I didn't have this disease. And then all of a sudden, when I fell down and I hit my elbow, then I realized. When I cut my arms, then I realized that the blood didn't stop. Etc., etc., etc. And غَنِيًّا أَوْ فَقِيرًا. And another stage and another step is that the human being will either be rich, wealthy, or poor. A wealthy man becomes a poor man. He goes bankrupt. He loses everything. The Titanic sank. How many people lost their money in their investments? These buildings were destroyed. How many people lost their money in their investments? This franchise crashed. This bank crashed. This financial recession or depression, etc., etc., etc. And the exact opposite. Your misfortune was my lucky day. You lost the money and I got it. I took it. I bought out your business. I turned it into something else, etc., etc., etc. The quarterback on the bench, right? The second string, right? The star quarterback, the franchise quarterback, the great Hall of Fame quarterback. He gets blindsided. He gets hit. He gets blitzed, hit by the linebacker, hit by the safety, broke his rib, broke his knee. No more surgeries, no more concussions for you. That's a misfortune to that quarterback. That's a misfortune to that team. But that second string now is thrown in the game. And he won the game. He led his team on a winning drive. That's his come up. State after state, situation after situation. Mu'afan or mubtalan. And either you'll have well-being, mu'afa, you'll be good, your body is good, your mind is good, your life is good, or you'll be mubtala. You'll be tested and tried. An orphan, or you have your father growing up. Free, or you're locked up. Your country is safe and peaceful, or there are bombs dropping in your neighborhood, etc., etc., etc. The different trials and tribulations of life. إلى جميع أحوال الإنسان المختلفة عليه. To the end of all of the situations and circumstances of the human being until he dies, until he's resurrected, and until he stands in front of Allah, the mighty and the sublime, paradise, heaven or hell. And that's the end of the story. Close the book. That's the end of the play. The curtains are closed. So you have the beginning until the credits. And think about all of the different sub-situations within that. Married today, divorced tomorrow. Divorced and separated, hurt, broken, betrayed, didn't work out, and you found a better wife or a better husband. A child of yours died, unfortunately. Miscarriage, accident, medical malpractice, and the law gives you another child, etc., etc., etc. You're friends with this person, the person that you love so much. You were inseparable. And now that person is a total, absolute stranger to you. Think about that. Think how deep that is. How many brothers right now as we speak, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, aren't here? They were close, inseparable. Now they don't even know each other anymore. They don't speak to each other anymore. Not only are they busy and preoccupied, but they may hate each other. What happened, etc. So you won't stay in one situation. Things in the world, in the life of the Muslim and the non-Muslim, will always be spinning and changing. Know this. Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, until you die, sickness, illness, losing your teeth, your hair falling out, the hospital. It was a time in which you dropped your children off to the daycare. Remember those days? You dropped your children off every day in the daycare, and you picked them up at 6 or 7 o'clock. Well, now the tables have turned, and your children are dropping you off at a daycare, an adult daycare. You ever seen that? Not an old folks home, but a daycare, in which you're there from 9 to 5. And they have different activities for you, and fruit cups and this and that. Think about that now. Think about an old folks home now. Dang. I was in charge. I was the father. I was the mother. I was the head honcho. I had the money. I had the power. And then I can't even clean myself when I use the bathroom. I can't even walk up the steps by myself. I can't walk down the steps by myself. I can't go and just get in a car, and I can't even chew my food. Just think how life changes just like that. And just think how people have iman. And something happens, they go through something, a trial of life, and the next thing you know, وَعَلِيَذُ بِاللَّهِ kufr. They're no longer Muslim. أعوذ بالله. Think about knowledge. How people busy themselves with ilm. They want to go study. They want to go learn. And now you see him walking down the street, he's just an average layman. The legacy of knowledge is gone. He's no longer interested in seeking knowledge and teaching knowledge. So things will always change in this world until the very last step, which is heaven or hell. فَالْمَعْنَى, Ibn Qayyim says, so this means station after station, situation after situation, affair after affair. قال سعيد بن جبير وابن زيد لا تكونن في الآخرة بعد الأولى ولا تصيرن أغنياء بعد الفقر وفقراء بعد الغنى. وقال عطاء شدة بعد شدة والطبقة الحال. ولهذا يقال كان فلان على طبقات شتى. قال عمرو بن العاص لقد كنت على طبقات ثلاث. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, and now he's going to switch things up. And this is from the beauty of this tafsir. He started off with his own speech, his own interpretation, his own words. And now he is going to the athar, quoting the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and the Salaf al-Salih. And of course, when you mix both styles, and when you can simplify and summarize and break down and quote and support what you're saying with the athar, it's invincible. That style can't be broken. So Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ibn Abbas's prized pupil, Jabir ibn Zayd, others, they said, is that indeed you will be in the next life like you were in this life. And or you'll be rich after you were poor. And you will be poor after you were rich. So first and foremost, alaikum salam, life in the hereafter. Is it real? Is it true? Or is the only real world and the only true world is the scientific world, the material world, the profane world, the tangible world that we live in? Allah tells us you'll go from situation to situation. Just like you lived here and your eyes were open, you could feel and experience, that's how things will be in the next. And nothing about resurrecting you, oh man, bringing you back to life, walking and talking, and you living in a world or a realm or a dimension that isn't of this one is difficult or impossible for us to do. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, obviously we know this is one of the main themes of the Meccan surahs as well. And that is what the mushrikun were upon with regards to Inkar al-Ba'th. They denied and they rejected, and it was impossible for them to wrap their heads around resurrection. Once we go, we turn into dust and bones, that's it. We won't be resurrected, we won't be brought back to life. Because it's either a waste or it's too difficult for Allah to do, or. And the Quran brings up all of those questions, all of those arguments, and it answers them. Allah asks them the rhetorical question, are you stronger? The things that we have made, are you the biggest and the strongest? Man, no matter how arrogant and prideful he is, common sense forces him to say, no, of course not. There are things that exist in our world that are bigger, faster, stronger, and 10 times more complex than us. So Allah asked the question, Antum ashaddu khalqan? What's more difficult for you to make, heaven or you? So that's out of the discussion. Is it easier for someone to make something, take it apart, and put it back together? Which of the two is more difficult, more challenging? Making it from scratch or putting it back together? For sure is what? So if the person made it from scratch, from nothing, then putting it back together will be relatively what? In our world as humans. So Allah Azza wa Jalla, He speaks on that. How He made you from this, from clay, from things that are released from the body, from fluids, so on and so forth. And every argument that the mushrikun made, why resurrection doesn't make sense, why it can't make sense, why it can't be, Allah debunked it. And Allah in this ayah is telling us, swearing to us that indeed, as you lived here, you will live again. So as if the ayah gives us a double-edged interpretation. Allah tells us that you will go from state to state, stage to stage in this world, and you also go from stage to stage, level to level in the next world. Everybody understand this? And this shows us the beauty of the Quran as well. And that the Quran is a means of guidance for the dunya and for the deen. The Muslims who know it, and the Muslims or non-Muslims who don't know it, then that's their problem and that's their fault. But if you read it, if you open it up, you can clearly see Allah is telling us to be prosperous and how to win and how to prosper in this world and in the hereafter. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. So that's first and foremost. So therefore these two from the Imma of Tafsir, they said, you'll live in the afterlife like you lived in this world. And in this world, you can be a rich man turning into a poor man, and you can be a poor man turning into a rich man. Another one of the tabi'een, one of the disciples of Abdullah ibn Abbas, the exegetes, he said, shiddatan ba'da shiddah, is that you go through hardship after hardship. Think about that in your life now. So right now, I'm graduating high school. That's difficult and that's challenging. Finding a scholarship, finding a college. My mother wants me to be an engineer. My father wants me to be a cardiologist. My uncle wants me to be a basketball player. I want to go study Islam overseas in Medina. How am I going to get into those colleges? Grades, scholarship, interest-based loans, financial aid, so on and so forth. Getting into the school. Am I accepted? Am I cool? Am I hip? Am I funny? Do I have friends? Am I the only Muslim? Am I the only black person? Am I the only African person? Am I the only Pakistani person? Etc., etc., etc. In college, avoiding drugs, women, parties, failing. The exams, the study is very rigorous. I thought I was just going to be, chasing girls, having fun, drinking beer all day, playing sports. But there's actual study in the college. And there are things that you have to memorize, and there are exams that you have to pass. Or, I'm not really an academic person, but I play football. Football in college is very different from football in high school. This is a serious program. The coach is tough. There's competition. There's a diet that he wants me to get on. He wants me to gain weight. He wants me to be in the weight room. He wants me to study. He wants me. It's very difficult. And I injured my knee. I tore my ACL. I ripped my ligament, my hamstring, right? I want to go to college, playing sports, or with a scholarship. How difficult is it to get into college? And how easy is it for you to get injured? How difficult is it for you to go to the NFL And how easy is it for you to become injured? One day you're a candidate for the league MVP. Is this not the case? Quarterback. That one injury was what? The end of his existence. He never ever bounced back from the ACL, the torn ligament. He didn't bounce back physically. And if he bounced back physically, relatively, for sure, he could never bounce back mentally. You know what I'm talking about. He couldn't accept the fact, I led this team to the Super Bowl and some no-name second string got the MVP. Impossible. And the people, they never forgot those miracles, quote unquote. Right? So he never bounced back mentally. So hardship after hardship, difficulty after difficulty. So back to college now. I'm in school. I'm about to graduate from school. I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to become a dentist. I'm going to become a nurse, so on and so forth. I have to pay off the student loans. And I want to get married. I have to find a girl, not my cousin, or not the woman that my family wants me to marry. And I have to pay her, and I have to pay her family. And this, and I have to pay off this loan. I have to get a house. I have to get a car. Difficulty after difficulty after difficulty after difficulty. And within the marriage, keeping the marriage, divorce, children, custody, and the list goes on. Your whole entire life is going to be struggle after struggle. And it is applicable to any situation, and any lifestyle, or any set of norms or values. If you're a student of knowledge, if you study Islam, it's difficult going overseas. Having the money to go overseas, getting accepted in the university, getting a visa, getting into the country. It's difficult. Studying, learning, memorizing. And if you were successful, now it's time to come back home. Where are you going to live? How are you going to live? What masjid are you going to go to? What madhab, what clique, what gang, what jama'ah are you a part of? Who's your friend? Who's your enemy? Are you going to water down Islam? Are you going to give people a happy-go-lucky, LOL version of Islam, smiling, laughing, joking all day? Or are you going to tell the people what they need to be told? Are you going to preach the truth? Are you going to teach the truth? And are you going to be fearless? Or are you going to fold in front of the different people, the political people, and the people that want to threaten you and bully you to give the people their version of Islam? And after you've memorized the Quran, you studied the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you learned the Arabic language, you've graduated, how are you going to carry yourself as humble? You're going to let people push you around, disrespect you? You're going to be accused of being arrogant, of being too harsh, of being. So there are 1,000 different examples that a person can make with regards to shiddatan ba'da shiddah, hardship after hardship, being a businessman, getting the money, keeping the money, investing the money, flipping the money, opening up different branches, different franchises, a lawsuit, somebody slipped on your property, a worker stealing from you, it's a COVID outbreak, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So nothing is sweet in life. Nothing is sweet. And that's another lesson that we can walk away with from this ayah. Life ain't sweet. And this is something that we need to teach our children. If you want something good, you have to earn it and work for it. And anything that you can put in the microwave and it takes 2 minutes to cook and prepare or to heat up isn't of good quality. If you go through the drive-thru and it takes you 5 minutes to get it, it's convenient, but know for sure that it isn't good. It's not wholesome. If you steal it, if you get it through association, it's not earned. So you have to go through hardships, you have to struggle, you have to sacrifice. And when you struggle and when you sacrifice, it's no guarantee that you're going to keep it. And it's no guarantee that you're going to always have it. So just know this. لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبَقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. And the greatest sacrifice and the greatest struggle and the greatest level after level, of course, is that of the hereafter. From the time your soul is taken, the grave, the fitna of the grave, the dammat al-qabr, dajjat al-qabr, daqtat al-qabr, the punishment, the life, etc. All the way up until your final abode of dwelling. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. قال رحمه الله تعالى والطبق وطبقة الحال ولهذا يقال كان فلان على طبقات شتى. قال عمرو بن العاصي لقد كنت على طبقات 3 أي أحوال. قال ابن العربي الطبق الحال على اختلافها وقد ذكرنا بعض أطباق الجنين في البطن من حين كونه نطفة إلى وقت ميلاده ثم نذكر الطبقات بعد ولادته إلى آخرها. That's the end of the passage. Now I have a trivia question for you guys. Based off of what we just read, what do you think the author Ibn al-Qayyim was originally talking about? Because this is a compilation of his statements and essays speaking on tafsir. And it isn't a book of tafsir that he himself wrote. He didn't author a book on tafsir from Fatiha to Nas. Rather, these are muntaqat, mukhtarat, muqtatafa, taken from different sources. So what do you think he was originally talking about? How did this come up? Who's smart enough and witty enough to take a guess, a shot? Who dares to be great? Tawfiq. His autobiography. It's a good attempt, but that's wrong. Anybody else? There are several clues it gave, several hints.
Successful life.
Successful life, keys to successful life. That's a good guess. Miftah Daras Ada. Further. Life cycle, good guess. A little closer. Something more. Bashir, it's something more. What would you say, Sheikh? Pray and follow the sunnah. Allahu Akbar. Can't go wrong with those two. Anybody else? How to succeed in this life and thereafter. That's too obvious. Fadal. Husnul khuluq. Can't go wrong with husnul khuluq, but that's not it. Ibn al-Qayyim, may Allah have mercy upon him, was talking about babies. Talking about children. Talking about the fetus. Ibn al-Qayyim has a book that he wrote on the rulings of children, which is called Tuhfatul Wadud fi Ahkam al-Mawlud. The gift of Allah, al-Wadud, the ever-loving and affectionate, concerning the rulings of newborns. And in him discussing newborns and their rulings, the aqiqah, naming a child, raising a child, rearing a child, etc., 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 he mentioned this ayah and he expounded this ayah. Everyone understand the beauty of this? And it goes to show you how the great scholars of Islam, they didn't leave any box that was unchecked. They spoke on all different aspects and avenues and perspectives, angles of the deen and of life. And obviously the clues were mentioned where? He mentioned what? More than once. He spoke about breastfeeding. He spoke about weaning. He spoke about being a toddler, an infant, right? He spoke about being a fetus. He spoke about the fluid of the male and the female. That's clear indicators that he was speaking on what? Mawlud, a baby. Everyone understand this? Khairan inshallah ta'ala. All right, so that's food for thought. And as we say, it's your job to do the dishes. You guys have to eat the dessert. You have to reading, studying, thinking about it. Go back to the tape. We'll stop here tonight. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll try to leave some time for the questions before the salah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.